So please all rise with me as we ask Jack Beauclair and Andrew Reed from Troop 70 to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Gentlemen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excellent. Would Jack or Andrew like to talk to us a little bit about Troop 70 and what you've been doing lately? Have you been learning anything or making any trips?
I can explain a little bit. So in the troop, there's a different there's groups of people. They're called patrols, and I am a patrol leader. So I recently did a patrol project, and we went to the Canoe Hill Cemetery, and we did some cleanup of sticks and leaves. So now it's in a little bit of a better condition. That was just some of the projects that some people have done. Somebody else painted a map at East School of the playground. And there's a lot of other different things. We also have been going on campouts. And those we've all been being safe, and we've all been learning different things. So I'd say that the troop has been productive over coronavirus.
Wow, that's a great report. Thank you, Jack Winalski. How about you, Andrew Reed? Anything to add?
Yeah, not much. Basically, like, we do our service projects. Normally, for like each patrol leader has to do like a service project to get credit for like the term. And we also run like campouts. Like one of the campouts we did was called Green Island. Like we go to this island called Green Island, and we canoe there, and then we stay there overnight. We bring all our stuff with us on like the canoes. So we canoe there, and then we stay the night, and then we camp there.
Great, excellent camping. All right, and Jack Beauclair.
Yes, I'd say Troop 70 is very fun and very educational. And we go camping. We do plenty of service projects. It's a great way to help out in the community. And I feel like it's teaching me at least a lot of life skills. And I think probably everyone in Troop 70 would agree.
And what do you have merit badges? Are you collecting merit badges at this time?
Well, I'm extremely new to the troop, so I currently don't have any merit badges. But we do collect merit badges. As you can see, Jack Winalski has quite a few.
Yeah.
On his stack.
Here I have just I think it's 13, and they all have different like logos. So that's like basically how you rank up in Boy Scouts, and you learn different skills. I'd say that my favorite merit badge that I've done is swimming, because I really enjoy swimming, and the ocean's just really fun. So yeah. I
think there's a merit badge for government, right? For government participation or civics. You don't have that one yet?
In the community, citizenship in the nation.
That's right. That's
there
right.
are citizenship ones, but I don't believe that there's any called government. Jack Winalski, am I wrong?
Community citizenship. Well, that sounds great, and maybe we can organize something with the town council and get some more citizenship going with the Troop 70. All right. Well, thank you. Is there anything else? Did I miss anything? Any parting words? Okay. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Excellent job leading the pledge and telling us about the Boy Scouts. Thank you. And with that, I will say that it is 7:06. This is the Town of New Canaan Town Council regular meeting for Wednesday, December 16, 2020. It's 7:06, I mentioned, and this is a virtual meeting. I do notice that Channel 79 did just join us, although we're not live. I hope that they are recording and that it'll be available soon. We've done the Pledge of Allegiance. Now let's move on to the roll call. Rich Townsend, would you like to take the roll?
Certainly. Robin Bates Mason.
Here.
Tom Butterworth,
Here.
Liz Donovan,
Here.
John Engel,
Here.
Sven England,
Here.
Mark Jinsky,
Here.
Steve Carl,
Here.
Mike Morrow,
Here.
Maria Naughton,
Here.
Christina Ross,
Here.
Rich Townsend, here, Penny Young.
Here.
You have 100% attendance and a quorum.
Excellent. Thank you, Rich. Okay, so the meeting is called to order. First order of business is the minutes. We have to approve the minutes for the November 18th, 2020 regular meeting. Do I have a motion? Oh, I see Sven. Do I have a second? Mike? Okay, so we have a motion to approve. We have a second. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor, raise your hand. I see John, Steve, Christina, Penny, Sven, Mark, Robin, Tom, Maria, Rich, Liz, Mike. So that's 12 votes. So the meeting minutes are approved. Public comments. Members of the public are welcome to speak to the town council on agenda topics scheduled for review and or vote. Speakers are requested to provide their name and street address, and comments will be limited to 3 minutes, subject to the total number of speakers. Does anybody wish to address the town council? You can just speak now. Raise your hand. Okay. There being no desire to speak to the town council, move on to First Selectman's update. Update from First Selectman. Go ahead, Kevin.
Good evening, everybody. Good to be with you on this eve of a snowstorm. And I will give you essentially the same update I gave to the Board of Finance last Tuesday. On the COVID front, you get the outcalls, so you know that we're kind of doing somewhat better than the state on average in terms of positivity. We've had another 12 or 14 cases since Monday night, since Monday. That last week represented the Thanksgiving bump, and we're kind of concerned that we're going to have a Christmas bump if people don't stay home and avoid gatherings, because it's primarily the transmission that we're seeing from people getting together with non-family members. And we've had only a few cases among town employees. And but our community testing is continuing 6 days a week at Lapham Center by Waveney Care Center. We're going to cancel tomorrow and reschedule Saturday to have extended hours until from 7 a.m. to noon, so that we can pick up the people who had registered for tomorrow. And let's see. On the capital front, the wastewater treatment plant CHP project is going forward. They were supposed to install the pads for the equipment today, and the equipment's supposed to arrive Friday, but I think they put that off to next week. But the equipment is supposed to be operational by February. And we signed PPAs for the Saks and West School solar projects, which is going to save us $1.36 million over the next 20 years on electricity. And the Saks boiler project is going forward, as well as the planning for the CHP installation. So that, I keep on saying this, the new cell tower in the northwest corner of town is imminent, but it's not yet signed. So I'll just keep on saying it's imminent until it's signed. Very close. The plan here is to have the town bring the cell tower to the siting council along with Homeland Towers as a public safety tower to expedite the process. And the police department building committee will meet tomorrow for their organizational meeting. I hope we have the meeting by Zoom despite the snow. And
Is that their first meeting?
that's their first meeting. We're consolidating the department manager's budget requests so that we're moving forward to bring forward a budget proposal in early January. Finally, as I announced last week, we're concluding a termination agreement with Bowtie Simonas with respect to the lease at the Playhouse. And we are beginning to get a lot of interest from various parties. So we will be pursuing over the next weeks and months what the best plan is for the Playhouse. Anybody has any input, we'd appreciate your thoughts. And
To ask the basic question that everybody's asking, the town wants wants to continue a movie theater in that location, right? That's the basic premise here.
I think that's what our perception is. Most people want, and also the downtown merchants and restaurants, downtown restaurants would like to. Darien lost their theater, and I think Wilton lost their. Did Wilton lose their theater? They converted it to a different kind of theater. Westport doesn't have a theater, so the first, we're going to see what kind of proposals are out there, but we'll first pursue if we can find an operator. We've had it, so that's about it.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Penny.
My question is, Kevin, when you're saying we are reviewing this, who is the we that is engaging that kind of in-depth analysis?
Well, Tucker is in charge of economic development, and myself and Linda as the CFO. We will see what kind of proposals are brought forth. We'll be happy to report on what may come forward. But right now, I think the operative first goal is to try to continue an operator of movies if it can be done with a lease that makes sense. Obviously, the movie business is a pretty terrible business right now. So it probably behooves us to not to jump to do anything, but take a good bit of time in early 21 to see how COVID develops and how the appetite for movies is.
Yeah, I think the reason why I question that is not to be questioning you, but to make sure that all considerations, that are being offered to you indeed are part of the thinking, because I understand that people are coming from, all different angles as to how that space could be used. And so, that it's not just a movie theater, that it could be any number of the other proposals that are being presented to you.
Yeah, well, most of the proposals are in the movie operator vein. As far as totally redeveloping it, I think that would be a major change from our thinking, and we'd come back and talk to everybody about it.
Good. Great,
People,
thank you.
If people feel strongly that they don't want a movie theater, please let us know. But I think we still, the operative assumption is we'd like to have a movie theater in town.
Well, I just had a quick comment. The Wilton movie theater was actually sold to the Prospector Theater folks in Ridgefield. And they operate a nonprofit that employs people who have disabilities. And that would be a wonderful thing. I think I had heard they were interested in our theater at one point a long time ago. I don't know if they would be interested in it now, but that's the kind of thing that I, for one, think would be a great use of that space. We keep it a movie theater, and it would supply jobs for some of our residents that need them.
Liz, they had talked to us, and now they've communicated with us. But for now, we don't want to talk about the various conversations that are going on.
We are in touch, Liz.
Great, thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments for Kevin? We've talked about the cell tower, the movie theater, the financials. What did I miss, Kevin? COVID testing. No questions on any of these things? Okay. I guess we're good. I guess you're communicating so well with everybody, Kevin, that we don't have any questions between your nightly broadcasts, your Tuesday Zoom calls, and your press conferences. Good job, Kevin. Next, number 5 on our agenda, adoption of the audited financial statements. Approval of a request to consider the recommendation of the audit committee to accept the audited financial statements. I see Bill Perrett on the call, and Linda, this is your presentation. So go ahead, Linda, unless
Sure.
Bill.
I'm going to share my host disabled. Tucker, can you give me the share screen powers?
I can.
Oh, okay.
Disappeared. Let's see. There we go. More. Come on, co-host. Go ahead.
Got it?
All right, I got the power.
Sounds
you
like a
see?
Star Wars.
I know, right? So what I'd like to do, I do have Bill Perrett and Chuck Jacobson from the audit committee. They're going to make some remarks, and then we also have Joe Centofanti, who is the partner at PKF O'Connor Davis, and he was the lead in this audit. And so if you do have any questions, they are at least Joe is available, but you will hear remarks from the audit committee. And so, you know, this is a statutory required process. Every year we are required to have our financials audited by an independent external auditor. And we brought to you early in the year the recommendation that PKF O'Connor Davis be the firm that conducts this audit, which you approved, and we engaged them to perform the audit. So I'm just going to go through some, I just have 4 charts that I just want to show the numbers where we ended up, what the year looks like, and then I'll toss it to Chuck and Bill. And then, like I said, Joe is on the call if you should have any questions. So essentially the first chart I have in front of you that I'm sharing is the summary of net positions. And so this is looking at the town government-wide, all of the resources. I know we spend a lot of time talking about the general fund, but as you know, the government has a number of operations outside of the general fund. And so what this chart shows basically is that net position government-wide, all the funds that the government has under its management. And so you could see that the column on the far right is our total governmental net position, which is $197.4 million. And you have the different categories. We have governmental activities. The first chart, first section, governmental activities, these are primarily the primary functions of government. You know, the general fund is included in there. Capital projects and assets, all of those things are included under our governmental funds. And so just looking at the net assets of all of our governmental activities, we had about 196 million in net assets in the governmental activities. Business type activities are those operations that we operate as a business. For the purpose of our financials, our business type activities are primarily just the Waveney pool at this time. And therefore that net position is about $1 million. And therefore, total government, all of our assets, included those capital investments, funds that are restricted, unrestricted, is you have that net of 197.4 million. And this is just showing over time where we were in 2018, 2019, and 2020. And so you can see that in terms of a net position, our net position has increased over the three-year period. The next chart is basically just breaking down that chart that I just showed you, is where do these funds come from? Primarily 2 sources. We have revenues and expenses, obviously. Our main revenue source is obviously property taxes. So you see that in that revenue, property taxes account for a little over 141.4. And then our expenses are grouped in the various functional areas. And then what I would point out is under public works, that 19.7 million, it's includes the operations and the capital projects, all of those things that are under public works. And therefore, as far as the change in net position, you'll see that in 2020, when you basically the net of revenues and expenses, our net position increased by 5.7 million compared to fiscal year 2019, where a net position increased by 10.2 million and the year prior by 15 million. So that's just a further breakdown of the first charts that I showed you. The other thing I wanted to show out, you know, we have discussions of what is our total outstanding general obligation bonds as of June 30th. And again, this is showing our total GO bonds and notes outstanding. And we do the same thing. We break them down between our governmental activities, our business types activities, which is Waveney Pool again, and then the total. So you can see that from 2018 through 2020, the total governmental outstanding dropped from 127 to 114, and as of June 30th, we ended at 107. So that's just showing you a trend. When I presented it to the Board of Finance, the way that we pay down our principal and interest is unlike a mortgage where you have 12 monthly payments. On the bond side, we typically have two big chunks. We have a September principal payment and usually as April, May, September principal payment. So as of today, we've actually already made the September payment. And so if I was to do this chart as of today, our total outstanding is actually at about $102 million as of today. This is just a snapshot as of June 30th. And so that's kind of how we're trending. I believe in this year, we're anticipated to pay down about $13 million without any new debt by June 30th of next year. So with no new debt, this total outstanding of 107 decreases by about $13 million or so. However, we do have plans to issue debt this year, and you'll be seeing those as we bring those to you. And then the final slide I just wanted to show is we talk about our fund balance and net position. And so on the governmental side, the primary fund on the governmental side is the general fund, and therefore you see here that our total unassigned fund balance as of June 30th in the general fund was at 31.6 million compared to 31 million last year. Our portion of that general fund outstanding balance that's assigned or committed is about 3.2 million. That includes commitments that the town sets aside for the Board of Health. We have that arrangement where we set aside a portion of their anticipated claims on the general fund side, and they set aside a portion on their funds. So that's included in the 3.2. What's also included in this 3.2, you'll recall that at the end of the year, the Board of Finance and the Town Council, I believe, approved setting aside $400,000 for the Board of Ed for COVID-related expenses. So that is considered a committed funds. That's part of that 3.2 million. And so forth. And therefore, when you look at the total governmental funds, this includes now other funds, our capital projects funds. There is a total of about $57.2 million of total net position / fund balance. Looking at our proprietary funds, we have the Waveney Pool, which has about $1 million. That is our only enterprise fund at the town. And then just for your information, I know you ask about where are we on the town health internal service and the Board of Ed internal service. So I broke those down for you as well, so you can see where those are and how they've trended over time. Of note, you'll note that the Board of Ed internal service fund for health did increase from 3.3 million, 5.9. This is a number we've had discussions with you. Part of that had to do with COVID and the pandemic. We saw that as we hit the pandemic, a lot of those medical procedures that individuals would typically schedule that were non-emergency, many of those things were delayed. And therefore, we saw this on the town side as well. But obviously, the Board of Ed is a bigger pool, so the impact of that is much bigger than it would be on the town side. But their anticipated claims at the end of the year were about $2 million less than what they had initially projected. And the primary driver of that is just some of those procedures that are elective that could wait. People did not want to go through those procedures during the pandemic. And therefore, that's the primary driver of that balance increasing. I talked to Dr. Keating, and they anticipate that some of those elective procedures will take place this fiscal year. So they anticipate somewhat making up, not for all of that, but for a substantial amount of that. And so that's kind of where we are in terms of the fund balance. And I will stop there. The audit committee has some remarks, and I'll toss it on to either Chuck or Bill. Chuck, I'll drive since I have your slides on the screen, and therefore I will mute myself and just have you walk the town council through your comments. And again, we do have Joe Centofanti from our audit firm that's on the line as well, if you should have any questions.
Yeah, and Linda, Bill's gonna talk here.
Okay. Thanks, Linda. Thanks, Chuck. And for the town council, as the second page of our little presentation, you see the first page has the audit committee members. I would say all of the audit committee members are very, very hardworking. We've had, if we can go to the second page, 5 formal meetings during the course of the year, but going through the CAFRA report and following up on individual items obviously takes a lot of time outside those 5 meetings. I want to acknowledge the town has again for the 4th year in a row, and we expect to have this every year. We're setting a very high bar, Linda is, and has won an award for excellence in reporting from the GFOA. Also, in 2020, the CAFRA report, I think, is a terrific report. There's a lot of information there. There's a lot of work on the part of the outside auditors and also on the part of Linda, with a lot of input from the audit committee, and a couple of committee members carry a big portion of the load on this as well. Chuck does, and Robin does, and George does, and Ed. And we had one significant deficiency that the town is working on, a very significant improvement from where we were a number of years ago. During the course of the year, the committee's focus was on a number of important things, but 2 that I like to call out is the MD&A, which is the management, discussion, and analysis. This has come a long way from where it was 5 years ago. This is a cooperative effort on the part of the town and the Board of Education. A lot of good quality information in there. And then, of course, this year, much of the audit was done, as much of the work was done in a remote environment, understanding the not only the disclosures around COVID and the impact, but making sure the audit process worked in an effective fashion. So the audit committee, when I'm finished, will be recommending that the town council accept the CAFRA report. We do have some potential opportunities, even though we're winning all these awards. We really believe that we can streamline the whole CAFRA process. We can improve transparency and disclosure. And we, really, I think we're almost at the point where we are best in class in the state, if not already there, but we're not going to rest on our laurels. And I do want to just acknowledge the great work on the part of Kevin and Brian, Linda, Joanne, and then Joe from PKF and their respective teams. Lots of cooperation. The audit committee doesn't get any pushback when we have a question or a challenge. And so I feel very good, and the audit committee feels very good about where we are today. And I know I sent the chairman of the committee, I think the audit committee process is working well. And I think at times we can be critical when necessary. But I think we should acknowledge the great work of the town council, the Board of Finance, the selectmen, and others that instituted the audit committee process a number of years ago and helping it work effectively. So as I said, the audit committee recommends the approval of the CAFRA report by the town council. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
How long have you been chairman? I notice you're up for reappointment tonight.
How long have we had an audit committee? I think probably for 5 years, maybe 4 years. So if elected, I'm happy to do it again. But if someone else wants to, take it over, I'm happy to pass the baton on as well.
So I have a technical question. Why is it considered a business activity? Is the only business activity the town pool? I know that we had a lease this year of at Kiwanis Park, for example, to the YMCA. We have a lease with the Playhouse. So I wonder what constitutes a business activity, or is it just because that is a segregated fund?
I think it's in part because it's segregated. I think because it's the totality of the pool, but maybe Linda, I'll ask you also to respond to that.
Sure. I'll toss it to Joe as the auditor. They make the determination. It is a gap designation, and Joe, if you could just expound on why that one is so, and for example, the sewer fund is not.
Sure. So basically it's really not an audit decision. It's more a town decision as far as cost recovery. So for the pool, if all the costs are intended to be covered by, including capital replacement, by the fees that are charged, that's more like running a business, versus if some of the other funds like the movie theater or something else that you're not intending to cover all the costs, then it's treated as a governmental fund because you're not trying to cover capital replacement. So capital replacement and payment of long-term debt are the two drivers as far as what would determine business type, where all that would be in the same fund versus if you're not going to cover all that through fees and the town's going to subsidize by maintaining capital or paying the debt, then it would be a governmental fund. So it's really how you're setting the fees that it drives whether it's a enterprise, business type enterprise or a governmental fund.
And is having one such fund typical for the towns in Connecticut or the towns around us? I know that, for example, we have been engaging in more public-private partnerships, most recently with the New Canaan Athletic Foundation to create a fund and replace the capital over a 10-year period with our turf fields. So I wondered, but yet we didn't set that up as a separate fund for purposes of the audit. So I just wondered whether you see this as typical among the towns around us and how they treat it.
Yeah, the most common, we'll say, business type are water funds, sewer funds, sometimes golf courses. Those are the more typical business type where they try to recover all the costs, including, again, capital and pay the debt necessary to build those systems. So your sewer fund now, you're charging a user fee, but if the decision was made to set the rates to cover capital and debt, then that would become a business type. But so, GAP does set rules that there has to be that intent and everything, all the costs have to be in one fund if that's what if it's going to be considered business type.
Okay. Any other questions?
Fundamentally, Joe, if you're going to if you're raising the capital to replace the pool or maintain it at a level, it becomes a separate entity. But if you're just charging a usage fee, so to speak, then you don't set it up in that fashion.
Right. If you just cover operating, then it would be a governmental fund versus covering everything. Yes, exactly.
So I guess, John, it goes back to, really the Board of Finance or the Town Council, the original intent as to, are you charging fees for items, or are you in fact looking to charge fees high enough to recover the overall cost and rebuild the entity or replace the sewer line or whatever the case may be. And that's probably part of the budgetary process, I would imagine. And how you raise funds in other fashions.
I think it's a great explanation. Thank you for it. I think it's relevant insofar as the town council has been wrestling with, I think it's 53 buildings. And we've been talking about for several years, the movie theater, the Vine Cottage, and it bothers us and it bothers a lot of people that, these are expensive assets and we don't really have a business plan for them. So I just wondered what constitutes a business, and what does not, the sewer fund, some of these old buildings. So I guess what I'm hearing is that in the future, the movie theater, the Vine Cottage, these could be set up as and viewed by auditors as separate enterprise funds.
I think it depends on sort of the fee structure. And, if you're just charging a usage fee for a building that the town owns, it's probably more complicated than this. That's one thing. But if you're charging a fee high enough to replace the asset in the future, because, it doesn't have to be replaced, whose responsibility is that? And, I really, I would say that those folks that make the decisions, as Kevin talked about, he's looking at it right now. Do we want to bring somebody in? This is probably a great example of the movie theater. Do we want to bring somebody in at a low enough fee so they can, in fact, run a movie theater successfully? Maybe the town breaks even from an overall operating standpoint. I would have to guess in today's environment, that's probably all you could get from a rent standpoint. What do you want to charge the rent that's high enough to make sure that the building doesn't deteriorate? And while I haven't, looked at that particular arrangement, my sense is that the town owns the building and that, we're fundamentally just going to charge an operating rent that allows the person to make a return. Otherwise, they're not going to be there. If they had to build a movie theater, you probably wouldn't get anybody to do it in today's environment.
No.
I think that's the differentiating factor.
Okay, I got a good education tonight. Thank
Yeah,
you.
good.
Any
John,
other questions?
On the audit committee, I have to step off for a phone call, but I know that my name will be up in about 20, 25 minutes. I'll try to come back in, but maybe it's good if I'm not around when everybody votes anyway, but I'm happy to serve if the town wants me to, but I'll try to come back in. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I think we made a motion that and I guess the town council has to vote on it.
All right, so I need a motion. I said, we have a discussion on approval of a request to consider the recommendation of the audit committee. So do I have a motion out there? Rich Townsend, head of the.
Yes, I would make that motion to approve the resolution put forward by the audit committee.
Okay, do we have a second?
I second.
Christina Ross seconds. Any discussion on the recommendation? Okay, there being none. Oh, you do?
Yeah, I just want to comment that I think these guys have done a great job and the improvements continue. And so I think they definitely deserve us to approve this and to give them a big thank you.
Rick,
Yeah, I would say
thanks, Rick, but I really say Linda and Joanne, if not that the people we've had before them weren't top quality people, but both of them have come to the town. Certainly after I became chair of the audit committee. So Joanne's probably here, 3 years, give or take a little bit, 4 years maybe. And Linda, time flies, but he's the junior person on the team. But both of them, the town is lucky to have both of them. They're good employees. Well, from my perspective, I don't supervise them every day. They're good people to work with.
I would just say, John, that the fact that you, Bill, and your committee and the Linda and Joanne are sitting where you sit makes it a lot easier for us to sit where we sit. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, excellent. We have a motion. We have a second. If there's no further discussion, all in favor, raise your hand. Okay, John, Steve, Christina, Penny, Sven, Mark, Tom, Maria, Robin, Rich, Liz, Mike. Okay, so that's unanimous. It is approved. We have adopted the audited financial statements. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Linda. Next, financial update, 10 minutes. Update of the recent financial results from Linda.
Okay, this will not take 10 minutes. You do have the financials with you. Our taxes are trending, and I've shared this with you in prior meetings. They're trending where we would anticipate them to trend. Our back tax collections are doing well. We've talked about our conveyance fees. We're almost to the point where we're exceeding what we had originally budgeted for the year with only halfway through the year. So good job, John, and all the people in your neck of the woods that do what you do for selling the community.
Can I interrupt?
You may.
Remind us, conveyance fees go to what? Do they fund affordable housing?
No, actually, conveyance fees are charged and they're split between the town and the state. And therefore, what we receive in conveyance fees goes entirely into the general fund towards just general operations. What goes towards affordable housing is a percentage of our building permits. That portion goes to affordable housing. And both are actually trending well compared to where we were last year. As I've shared with you before, we did have a slowdown in the parking revenues, largely because of the of COVID and kind of pausing the billing because we didn't bill for the May cycle where we typically do, but that is being made up by some of these positive revenue collections in our other revenue items. So overall, our total revenues are where we would want them to be. I see no concern in terms of our revenue pictures. Our expenses are trending the way that we would anticipate them to trend this time of year. Obviously, we do have COVID-related expenses that we're still incurring as we go through the year. So that is an expense that did not exist the year prior. So when you compare that year-to-date expenses, you'll notice that we didn't have COVID expenses this time last year. But also on the COVID side, last year we submitted, actually this year, earlier this year, we did submit to the state about $202,000 in COVID-related expenses between the town and the Board of Ed. We did receive reimbursement, about $195,000. So of the 202, we got $195,000 back from the state, and therefore that's positive news. We have about another 350 or so thousand outstanding in reimbursements that we've applied to FEMA, and so we're waiting on FEMA to kind of tell us what's happening with those reimbursements. And then a portion of that will also be refunded by the state, but the state cannot act until we've heard from FEMA, and therefore we're waiting to hear from them on that. But Bill Ostman in our Public Works Department is our point person, and he is in constant communication with FEMA, and we anticipate that a decision should be made fairly shortly on that.
Do you think that the COVID expenses are offset by the increased conveyance fees? Is that a wash, or we don't know yet?
They will be. I mean, this year we've had about just under 300,000 in COVID expenses. We will have more than that offset in conveyance fees, and so I think in terms total revenue picture, we should be okay. I think our big COVID expense this year is obviously the combined 1.9 million that we provided to the Board of Ed just for getting the schools ready. We did the 400,000 towards the end of the year, of the fiscal year, and then the 1.5 million that we did this year for a combined of just 1.9 million. Based on what we've seen from the state, I just got a note today from OPM that there is some money for reimbursement of that portion, but unlike the first chunk of reimbursements where they actually wanted us to send our actual reimbursements and they would review and send us equal amounts essentially for what was eligible. This round, they're actually basing that reimbursement on the population. And it doesn't look like we would fully get the $1.9 million from the state for that. The Board of Ed does have other pots of funds that are specifically for education-related expenses, and in discussions with Dr. Keating, she is exploring how to submit for reimbursements that 1.9 so that we can get as much of that money reimbursed. So she's looking to see if any of that 1.9 qualifies for some of the education-specific expenses. She will submit those towards those expenses so that we could apply whatever that's remaining toward the per capita distribution amount. So between the two of us, we're trying to see the best opportunities that are out there for getting most of our expenses back.
As I recall, in my own mind, I imagine, I remember they asked for $2 million in COVID-related expenses for the Board of Education, but they said that they had realized savings in other areas that offset that $2 million COVID expense. So I never looked at this as coming from, whether or not we got reimbursed by the state, and never looked at this as a burden to the town. Did I recall correctly?
Yes, you did. And I believe that Dr. Keating was compiling those numbers, and she will be presenting what those save, because the Board of Finance has asked for that information as well. So I believe at the January, the February meeting, she will come with some of those numbers, because they were running those numbers and looking at their year-end projections and what those savings would be.
Okay.
And that's all I have for the financials, unless you have questions for me.
You mentioned earlier that we are going to bond some more projects, so that while our total indebtedness is around 102 million now, it's going to increase shortly. Any idea how much?
I don't. We're reviewing the projects now, but together with that bond, we also have an opportunity to do a refunding. And I met with our financial advisor and the bond counsel. Actually, I had a call with them yesterday. And therefore, what they're putting together is the profile of the net savings and a combination of the new monies, but those will come before you. So there will be a net impact. We will increase some of the bonded debt, but we also will be offsetting a chunk of that in a refunding, just taking advantage of the interest rates. And as you know, every time we do, even for the refunding, we have to put together a refunding resolution that has to come before you. So we will present that to you before we go to the market. So you have, you know, the exact dollar amount and what the net present value savings are on the refundings. You did also already approve some bond resolutions, but those also come back to you as we go out and bond individual projects. So these both of these numbers, the refunding and the new money issues, will be coming to you, and we will outline the net impact to the general outstanding general obligation, but we will also provide with you the net present value savings of any of the bonds that we're refunding at this time. So I don't have those numbers. That's a long answer to your very easy question.
So I'm just wondering, so when you say it's 102 and it will grow, that's not based on future projects like a police station or a library. Those are things that we already approved last year that just haven't funded yet? Or are you talking about new projects that we have not yet approved?
No, these are projects these are the resolutions that you approved in May. And therefore, yes, there were some projects that you approved in May, and then there were some projects that you approved prior to May that we have begun the projects, but we hadn't bonded for. So typically what we do, we bond these projects as the projects are either nearing completion. So even the projects that you approved in May, we will not bond all of those projects at this time because some of those we haven't yet started, and we try to maximize the dollars that we have in our fund balance. But then there are also requirements that when we do bond, we do have 18 months to spend the bonded funds, and therefore we try to time it so that we don't bond too early and get into IRS calculations of accrued interest and those types of things.
So something like a $600,000 fire truck, which was approved and has not yet been delivered, I think, but is going to be delivered shortly. I would imagine that that's already in the 102, right?
I'd have to see if that, I don't know, to be honest. I have to look at what the last bonding that we did. I believe there was a fire truck in there, but I'm not sure if this specific one was there or if it's in this, or if it's in the new one. Because it takes a while to put a fire truck together. So we don't typically issue it the same year that we authorize it.
Okay. Rich, anything?
Oh, all makes sense to me, John.
When do you think that the refunding will happen? In the next 2 months, or is that in the next 6 months? How long does that take to go through?
Well, we hope to go to the market by March, mid-March, because the bond, you can only refund the way that bonds work when the bonds are callable. And therefore, the first series of bonds are callable in June, and you can go up to 90 days before the callable date to refund. And therefore, the earliest we can go out for refunding these specific bonds is March. I believe it's March 17th. And therefore, we're going to start the paperwork and the noticing and the advertising and get the bond rating calls and whatnot. But we do hope to bring something to you, probably either at a February meeting or at your March meeting. And we should be selling those bonds around the March timeframe. It's easier to, it's not easier, it's cheaper is a bad word. It's more economic to do a refunding and a new issue at once because you're engaging bond counsel and financial advisors, and therefore we'll package so that we do all of that together in March, which is how we've historically done these here at the town.
Sven, and then
Hi,
Mark.
Linda. I was scanning through this the other day, and it tweaked my mind again when I read Teen Center, and then I went, oh yeah, how's our tenant doing there? Speaking of tenants.
I mean, they're doing well. What the Board of Selectmen did, and Kevin is here, he can chime in. What the one at the annex is actually interesting because they had prepaid for 6 months ahead of time, and so they did. When the Board of Selectmen offered grace period for our existing tenants, they had prepaid, and therefore they came back to us and said that could we work with them to extend the prepayment period, which we did. And therefore they are current, but I do see cars, I believe they've begun some limited number of classes up, but you're still working with them and they're still there.
Okay, glad to hear they're hanging in there. Okay.
Mark?
Yeah, Linda, just a quick question. Are we, with our lower debt obligations and lower interest expense, are we seeing interest expense savings on a year-over-year basis the last 3 years?
Yes, you know, when we're in the bonds, we're locked into those principal and interest payments, and therefore, similar to what we're doing now is when we do have an opportunity to refund, we basically refinance. We refinance our bonds at those lower rates, and we anticipate doing that when we bring this back to you in March. When the last refunding that we did last year, I believe it was in October or September, we had about a net $80,000 to $90,000 in savings in annual principal payments. And I believe the last one we did just before the Board of Finance, just before you approved the budget, and we were actually able to lower that principal component of the budget for that fiscal year. And so we hope to do the same thing when we bring this to you in March, to possibly lower the principal payments that are due in the fiscal year 22 budget that you'll be approving in April. We typically look for the best practice is to look for a net present value savings of about 3% on the interest. The analysis that I've seen on these ones that we're bringing to you, they're in excess of anywhere between 5 and 6, which is really good. We also have an opportunity to refund some taxable bonds that are taxed at a higher interest rate, but we can actually, let me reverse that. We have some non-taxable bonds that we can refund as taxable bonds, but the taxable bonds right now are actually at a lower interest rate than the tax-exempt bonds that we had initially offered. That's just how the market is right now. And therefore, we're looking at all of these opportunities. It's not typical that you would go from a non-taxable to a taxable and save interest savings, but in the ones that we'll be bringing to you, we will be doing that.
Okay, if there's no further questions. Okay, thank you, Linda. Thanks for the update. Okay, so
John,
go ahead.
John, it's Penny. Does it make sense to move up 8 instead of going to 7 so that these folks can?
I guess it depends on how long we think we're going to take with tax abatement. I mean, it says it's 10 minutes, but you know, is it going to take longer than that?
I would recommend moving them up. I think that's going to be a longer discussion.
Okay, so
that was kind of my surmise and why I suggested that. I mean, these folks, I was going to say that drive home, but they're probably already home. So,
Make the motion, Penny.
I move that we move number 8 item up in the agenda and deal with that now.
Second.
Okay, Sven seconds it. All in favor?
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, it passes unanimously. We'll talk about appointments and reappointments right now. First, the Board of Finance. To confirm the appointment of Victor Alvarez as an alternate member to the Board of Finance to fill the unexpired term of Chris Labrie, and to expire on December 1st, 2021, in accordance with the Town Charter C5-2. Do I have a motion? Okay, Steve Carl, seconded by Mark Jimsky. Any discussion? Victor, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Would you like to introduce yourself to the Town Council and tell us, I guess, about yourself, about the Board of Finance, and anything you'd like to say?
Sure, thanks. I have been living in New Canaan for 11 years. I have one son who's a freshman at New Canaan High School and another son who's a sophomore at Connecticut College. I've been a St. Mark's parishioner for 11 years. I've been a Cub Scout den leader for 2 years. I haven't done that in a few years, but I was involved in the Scouts. And I've done some other volunteer work in town. I'm happy to use this appointment to contribute to this already strong community. I have 30 years of experience in finance. I started out as an option trader on the floor of the American Stock Exchange. I moved into M&A work and worked at a couple of different investment banks. Then I moved over to a tech startup where I was the director of financial planning and analysis and the corporate secretary. I was at that company for 9 years. We were acquired by Elsevier, a Dutch company, and I've been at Elsevier for 8 years. And I am the husband of Mickey Porta.
All right. So you're an M&A expert.
Not an expert, but I was my capacity in the investment banks was I was working as a database librarian, assisting the investment bankers with mining the different databases at their disposal for the information that they required for their work.
All right. So you can't help us with a hostile takeover of Darien, let's say. But
Well,
you can help us mine the
interestingly,
data.
we could take over Darien. However, I don't know if the synergies are there, but I did get my stronger M&A work was when I was working at the tech startup and we were acquired by a larger company.
And I've also talked to him about the conference.
All right. Any other questions for, I think that was your mic, Penny. Any other questions for Victor? Well, welcome to the, I mean, maybe it's premature, but welcome to the Board of Finance. I think that they're doing a great job. I'm waiting breathlessly for their guidance this year. I was hoping that we would have a joint meeting with them, but because I do like to sit down with them in the Board of Education each year. But I guess this is just not the year to all get to sit together. And it would probably be unwieldy to have such a Zoom meeting. Anyway, the Board of Finance is a very big part of this town's management. And so really important job. And I'm really glad to welcome you to it. Any other questions for Victor? Okay, there being none. Do I have, I guess I have a motion. I have a second. We've had a discussion. Okay, all in favor, raise your hands. So John, Steve, Christina, Penny, Sven, Mark, Robin, Maria, Tom, Rich, Mike, and Liz. So passes unanimously. Welcome, Victor. Glad to have you aboard.
Thanks, John.
Okay. Next, Ethics Board. To confirm the appointment of Alexandra Van Ness as a member of the Ethics Board for a 3-year term to expire on December 1st, 2023, in accordance with Town Charter C14-6. Do I have a motion? Steve Carl, seconded. Mark Jimsky. Do I see Alexandra?
Hi.
Oh, hi. Okay. Hi. Would you like to introduce yourself to us and tell us about the Ethics Board and your background?
Sure thing. And I'm going to follow Victor's example, not having done this before. Thank you for having me tonight. It's nice to meet you all. I've really enjoyed this meeting so far and getting a glimpse into the town business. You can call me Allie. That's my nickname. I've lived in New Canaan for about 7 years. I have one daughter who is at Sachs Middle School. And we have a dog and we have some chickens as well. Actually, we live up on Deep Valley Road. I've been a lawyer for about 18 years, and I currently serve as the head of special projects for FactSet, a technology company based in Norwalk, although what you see here is where I've been working since March. I work in the analytics division, and I started their regulatory analytics business. So we do financial analytics and data mostly for investment managers. Like Victor, I'm also a parishioner of St. Mark's, not for as long as he has been, but I love it there. And I'm also a member of the Schools and Scholarships Committee of the Harvard Club. And all that means is that I interview prospective students, and I've done that for about 15 years. So, I mean, that's really my background. I work kind of a lot. It's become easier to do since I don't commute. And I was happy to be asked for this because I've been looking for ways to kind of be more engaged with the town and maybe even give something back. And unbelievably, an opening on the ethics board seemed to hit something I might have trained for. So that's how this came about.
Does anybody have any questions for Ally? Or can you tell us, I guess you've met with the members of the ethics board, and I guess the dealings of the ethics board are probably a secret to most people. Some of it is, sensitive stuff and is meant to be secret. But
yeah, maybe I should mention too, John, sorry, I don't mean to talk over you. The Zoom timing is tricky. I started my legal practice in New York City, and then I clerked for a federal judge who happens to be the chief judge of the Southern District of New York right now, Colleen McMahon. And then after that, I worked in the white collar practice group at Day Pitney, where Stan Twardy was the head of the firm at the time. A lot of former US attorneys. What I learned there was how to do an internal investigation and that kind of thing. All of this stuff extremely sensitive and confidential. And I would say your comment a second ago about the workings of the ethics committee, which I would not purport to understand yet because I'm not a member yet, but I think they're appropriately secret. And one of the things I loved when I read the ethics charter and the ethics code was that it is activated by somebody engaging the committee to look into something. I liked that it's a responsive committee. I like the fact that it's not going and looking for trouble. And I like that it seems to really safeguard people's privacy, which I think is incredibly important, especially right now. So I don't know how private or secret the workings are, but I can tell you that in all of my work and all of my jobs and all of my roles, I take people's privacy and dignity and integrity extremely seriously. I do the best I can with that. And I feel like every person I talk to on the ethics board right now seemed to demonstrate a strength of character. So I was honored to be asked. I hope I can keep up to their example, but I really liked the spirit of what they're trying to do.
Yeah, my only interaction was, I think a citizen wrote to the town council, and I got the email, and they said, there's a problem. You guys have to do something about this. And I said, well, that's what we have an ethics committee for. And I sent it to the ethics committee, and they said, oh yeah, we're aware of this, and we've investigated this. And it made me realize that they're doing work that most people in the town aren't aware of, that they are fielding complaints, they're investigating them. And they're meeting on them and they're voting on them, unbeknownst to me, and that they had already made a decision. In this case, the citizen didn't like the decision, so he came to the town council, but that's why we have an ethics committee, so that they can handle this in a, with appropriate process.
Sounds like government working. I will just tell you one cute thing. When I explained to my daughter that this was on the table, she looked at me, she's 11, and she said, Mom, you can't do anything wrong now.
Right.
And I said, no, it means you can't do anything wrong.
I love that. All right, that's excellent. So you can't, with that in mind, that you can't do anything wrong, you still want this job.
I'm going to try.
All right. So I think we have a motion. We have a second. No further discussion. Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. So it's John, Steve, Christina, Penny, Sven, Mark, Tom, Maria, Robin, Rich, Mike, and Liz. So passes unanimously. Thank you, Ally. Welcome to the Board of Ethics.
Thank you very much.
All right, excellent. And now, Bill Perrett. Audit Committee to confirm the reappointment of Bill Perrett for a 3-year term ending December 2nd, 2023. I don't see Bill. Oh, there he is. Okay.
Hang on.
Do you want to reintroduce yourself to
Sure,
not
why
only us, but the great citizenry of New Canaan?
Why not?
You're on TV.
I came to town in 1981. We had 6 children, all of whom are grown at this particular point. 2 of my daughters actually are also residents with their family in town as well. I spent my entire career with Deloitte. I was the managing partner of the firm for quite a number of years, but most of my years I was an audit partner supervising audits and understand that business, and I am a CPA. Post my retirement from Deloitte, besides being the chairman of the audit committee of the town of New Canaan, I serve on a number of public boards, and I'm the chairman of the audit committee on 2 of those public boards. 3 of the companies that most people who would be listening would know would be the Blackstone Group, Oracle, and then Kodak. Now, many people probably don't realize that Kodak is still in existence, and many people haven't bought a roll of Kodak film in quite a number of years, but it's still a vibrant company and with a good future. So with that, I'd be happy. I was thinking about your question earlier. Since this is my reappointment to a 3-year term, I must have been the chairman for 6 years already. I was the chairman at the time of formation. And as I said earlier, I think the town should be recognized for spotting the need. And there was a lot of debate at that particular point in time. I was on the sideline, but I think the process we have in New Canaan is a terrific process. Whether it's me as the chairman or the other 4 members, the fact we have a committee is excellent, and we've done a lot of good work over the years. I'd be happy to serve.
Thank you. Any questions for Bill? All right. Do I have a motion to reappoint him?
Make the motion.
Let's pick somebody else. Christina, and a second from Mike Morrow. All right. Any discussion or questions of Bill? Besides, why would you want to do this again? Okay. There
How
being
about
no
just
questions.
thanks, Bill?
Thank you, Bill.
We were pretty bloody and bruised when you came in, and 4 years of awards for our reporting. You and Londa and all the folks in finance, thank you.
Thank
We
you.
really, really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. It was good cooperation, and there was and whenever things are new, it's a learning process, and we all learn together.
Yeah, I think it's an incredibly important job, and I guess you wouldn't know that if you were new to town, but things weren't always this way. I think 6 years ago, there was a lot of problems with our audit. The town council, very nervous, didn't know whether to look to the CFO. Do you look to the Board of Selectmen? Who do you look to understand the audit and to, get things fixed? So we formed the audit committee, and we said, we're not capable of digging into this ourselves. And we created the audit committee, and we got some of the best financial minds in town, in the Northeast, frankly, volunteered. And we've gone from at 10 material weaknesses to 0, right? How's that for a summary, right? 10 material weaknesses down to 0. So we must be doing something right. And the Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen, and Town Council, and the CFO all get together, get along so much better than we did 6 years ago. And I think it's because you facilitate the communications between us and know where to direct, questions, issues. So thank you.
We've had a good, terrific cooperation with the Board of Education as well.
Yes. Which should not be, is not overstated. Okay, so all in favor of the reappointment of Bill Perrett, raise your hand. John Engel, Steve Carl, Mark Jimsky, Sven England, Penny, Christina, Robin, Maria, Tom, Rich, Mike, and there's Liz. Okay, passes unanimously. Congratulations and welcome back for 3 more years.
Hey, John, just a quick one. As far as the level of talent that New Canaan continues to give through volunteerism is amazing. I mean, you look at Victor and Allie and Bill tonight and what just those three people have done in their careers, and to lend their talents to the New Canaan is just amazing. So thank you for continuing a great tradition. And it really is a night of celebration. I mean, the fact that the town council put together the ethics board and, you know, the audit committee, and we've all been around long enough to remember the before and after. So, you know, it is a night to pat ourselves on the back a little bit, and just, it's a really a big night to celebrate. So thank you all for volunteering, and obviously the town council, the work we did to get us where we are. And Bill, all the stuff you've done, I mean, I can't thank you enough for all the work you guys do. You quietly go about your business. You're exactly what we thought the audit committee would be when we formed it, and you've hit it out of the park. So thank you so much.
Okay, excellent. Now let's move on to the new item number 8, tax abatement, discussion of a municipal option to abate real or personal property taxes paid by a nonprofit land conservation organization. Robin, go ahead.
Okay. At their last meeting, the Conservation Commission voted to recommend to the town council to adopt the municipal option to abate real or property or personal property taxes paid by a nonprofit land conservation organization, which is in the Connecticut General Statutes, Section 12-81DD. The motion looks to reimburse New Canaan Land Trust for all real estate taxes paid since 2015, which is just under $64,000, and establish an ordinance that enables the reimbursement and/or abatement of real estate taxes for all future land trust transactions. Now, on your tablets, there was the presentation from Aaron Leafland. And actually, Aaron, are you here?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, so Aaron Leafland, he's the executive director of the New Canaan Land Trust, and he's here to present more on this subject and answer questions as to why implementation of the tax abatement would be beneficial to the town and would help in acquiring more protected open space for New Canaan. Tucker, can you share, or John, can you share the presentation?
Tucker made me a co-host, so I can run through it. That's, yeah.
Okay.
All right, give me 1 second just to pull this up. Full screen. All right, so thank you all for having me here today. This is an issue that's of great interest to the Land Trust and great importance to the Land Trust. As Robin mentioned, we're talking about a Connecticut General Statute, which gives towns the option to abate real estate taxes that are owed by nonprofit land conservation organizations. So just a quick refresher on how taxes are assessed in New Canaan. I know it's not the most straightforward and sometimes confusing for folks, but taxes are assessed on October 1st of a given year, and then payments are due in 2 installments, one in July and one in January of the following year. So as that pertains to the Land Trust, it means that if we receive a donation of property in, let's say, May of 2020, we then owe taxes in July and then again in January of 2021 until that property is removed from the grand list that following assessment year. So after taxes are paid for the first assessment, up to a full year afterwards, we can still be owing real estate taxes, sort of waiting for that property to come off the grand list. The general statute itself is here. You've all been sent this presentation, so I'm not going to read it out loud. But the reason I put it here is it's short and sweet. This is the entire thing. I haven't omitted anything. Pretty straightforward and clear in terms of what the intent was. The way that this applies to New Canaan, the first way is that the town council can authorize the reimbursement of real estate taxes. And as Robin mentioned, the Land Trust has paid about $64,000 in real estate taxes over the last 5 years. With this statute, all of that is eligible for reimbursement. And then we're also asking if the town council would consider abating future real estate property taxes through the adoption of an ordinance, which would essentially allow this to happen automatically going forward. So rather than coming to the town council after each transaction and asking for either reimbursement or abatement, this could just sort of happen automatically with the town's assessor. The one question that I'm sure folks are going to ask is this going to lead to a loss in tax revenue? The short answer is not really. Not only is this a pretty insignificant amount of money in the grand scheme of things, I did the math. Fortunately, we had the audited statements presented earlier, did the math quickly. We're looking on average about less than 1/100th of 1% of all of New Canaan's real estate taxes are sort of from the land trusts that abatement period. But there's also a number of other reasons that this isn't going to cause huge decline in tax revenue. The first is that when we conserve land, we're actually improving or increasing land values around the land trust properties. So all these quotes are from a Connecticut research report. I think the last one is really telling, saying that 20% increase in property value for properties that adjoin passive use parks, things like land trust properties. It's pretty telling that almost weekly I get a notification from a real estate firm that's tagged us in one of their listings because they see it as a selling point for a potential property. So that again is sort of tying into the conveyance fees that the town is receiving. So not only are values of homes surrounding land trust preserves increasing in value, there's also this thing called cost of community services, which some of you may have heard about. And there's been hundreds of studies done across the country, many of which have been done in Connecticut. And they all essentially say the same thing. And that's for every dollar that a town generates through residential real estate taxes, it ends up paying about $1.15 to service those homes for things like educations and public works and public safety. And so by keeping open space as open space and just not developing residential properties there, we're actually saving the town money. So again, how can the town support conservation with this statute? The first is that request for real estate reimbursement from all transactions since 2015. And then the second is to establish an ordinance. And then the big question here is why? The real estate tax is the single large expense that the land trust incurs when accepting a gift of land. So even though somebody is generous and wants to support the land trust mission by donating land to the land trust, that sort of comes with the obligation to pay the town several $1,000s in real estate taxes, which is a significant burden for an organization of our size. I don't think members are aware that some portion of their donation to the land trust ends up sort of going back to the town in the form of real estate taxes. And in some cases, money that the town gives us, like the Silvermine Fowler Preserve, where the town really generously gave us almost $250,000. Part of that money was then sort of turned around and given back to the town in these real estate taxes that we owed. So this will make land transactions easier for us. It'll help to accelerate the rate at which we can conserve open space. And at the end of the day, I think it's important to remember that should the land trust dissolve, all of our land ends up going back to the town anyhow. So sort of a win-win situation. Thank you again for having me here. I'm happy to answer any questions or go over numbers, and would thank you for considering this.
I have a question, Aaron.
Yeah.
On your last page, the transaction report that adds up to the $63,889, there are a few items in there called reimbursement for prepaid taxes. Could you explain what those are?
Yeah, let me just pull that up here quickly. Yeah, so these are the escrow items. So in some situations, just because of the timing of the transaction, a landowner will have paid their taxes sort of past the date after we're doing the actual transaction. And so just like any other real estate transaction with any other seller and buyer, we're essentially reimbursing the landowner who has already paid the town the taxes for the number of days that we own the land. Does that make sense? So if we close, if somebody's paid their taxes, say, sorry, I've got to go back to look at the dates here. Somebody paid their tax bill for the July bill, but we closed in August, we essentially are going to be would be getting 5 months of free taxes if we didn't reimburse the donor. So those are escrow payments that effectively reimburse the landowner who has already paid those taxes to the town.
So the date on Fowler is May 4th,
Mm-hmm.
and that seems early, but does that make sense? Of 2017.
That date might need to be updated. That number was from the closing statement, which I believe. Oh no, that's probably the date we closed on the property, and so that's essentially the taxes that the Fowler family had paid leading up to our closing for the earlier bill. Yeah, and more years worth of back tax or real estate taxes.
I take it the amount of abatement that would happen in the future might, who knows, depends on how many acquisitions you make, right? But
Mhm.
It could be 10 grand a year. It's not a $500,000 a year. It's
No,
a fairly
no.
small number.
Yeah.
Steve, how long will it take to get this through the ordinance committee for consideration?
It could be quick. I mean, it looks like it's two pieces though, right? There's the financial side of it and then the adoption of the ordinance side of it. So the ordinance language looks like it's already written, as long as we can maybe get Aaron to, or, we'll have a meeting and then invite Aaron and he can present. We'll look at the language and then we can bring it back to the council and have a sort of the next discussion and even vote on it at our next meeting if you want. So we can move along pretty quickly. We could have it done. It just has to get posted. It'll have to be, goes through the proper posting in the papers online or whatever. However, it's a couple of weeks, and then it has to come back to the council. So probably could be by January or February. Actually, probably be better than February because everybody's away right now, so, or busy. Unless you want to do it in January, we could do that.
February is a busy month for us too, Steve.
Yeah.
Aaron, why don't you mention, is it Greenwich that has an ordinance?
We looked into it. Greenwich actually does not have an ordinance. I think they've enabled the statute in some cases, but they haven't created the same ordinance. And a number of other towns in the state have enabled the statute. But yeah, Greenwich hadn't quite adopted what we thought they had.
Okay.
So, but I think the town attorney, Nick Bamonte, has been working on this with us, and he can draft a ordinance, Steve, and get it to you to consider and then present it as well. So
Great. Yeah, Nick's great. It doesn't look like it's going to be a very lengthy bunch of words. It looks like we can do it in a pretty short burst, so it should be easy to go through.
Kevin, you mentioned Greenwich, but what about neighboring towns?
So the towns that I've had, I don't think any of them are sort of lower Fairfield County. I put a message out to sort of a land trust listserv that exists and heard back from a couple, including Groton, Wolcott, Manchester, Ledyard. They've all enabled this statute. But I just hadn't heard back from everybody, so I can't say definitively who hasn't. But I know for certain those towns have.
Aaron, do you recall when the statute was adopted? Was it 2008 or?
I can get that really quick.
2007.
Yeah, maybe. Oh yeah, then that was amended 2010. Looked like. So it's been on the books for some time.
It was adopted 2007, and then Greenwich did their form in 2008.
Penny, you're still muted.
Yeah,
Penny, you're muted.
Do you actually need an ordinance if it's already a state statute?
The ordinance would effectively just allow it to happen automatically. Otherwise, every time we do a transaction, we would need to present that real estate transaction to the town council and spend time asking for the reimbursement on a case-by-case basis. So this would effectively just save time for the town council and make the process efficient.
All right, and I have a second question on the motion that is going to be before us. Do we have to do it by year, where the taxes have been paid going back to 2015, or can we do it all grouped together? Because the statute says a tax year, and we're grouping years in the proposal.
I think that's what Nick Babande has already opined on, that you can approve them all. Going back, there's no time period as far as going back, I suppose, except beyond the statute being adopted. So.
Okay. All right. I was just trying to, opine on the statute.
Aaron, why did we pick 2015? Or is that when the statute went into effect?
The land trust historically has never purchased property, and they hadn't gotten a donation in a number of years. Chris Shipper reinvigorated the land trust, and it's really the work of in the last 5-6 years that they've gotten more gifts and then purchased solid property. And actually, Chris Shipper for years every year would come and say, why are we paying taxes? And Sebi, who wasn't aware of the statute, our tax assessor would say, because that's what someone has to pay the taxes. Once a warrant for it is issued, you have to pay it, except for this special tax statute in case of land conservation trusts.
So the mechanics of this are in January, we may have two things to vote on. One would be Nick Belmonte will draft an ordinance. It will go through Steve will convene a Zoom meeting discussing it, reviewing it, understanding it, and then Steve's committee will present it to us for a vote potentially in January. And then the second thing, to Penny's point, would be that little spreadsheet you just showed of $63,000 in taxes, and somebody will make a motion to either refund the $63,000 and second it, and then we'll vote on that. Is that how this works?
Yeah, we have to post it and we have to do a public meeting, a public hearing.
You're going to do the schedule amounts tonight. It has been for the $63,000. Then going forward, quite honestly, I don't think you'll make the January meeting to adopt the NORD more likely February.
Okay, February.
But that's what will put a process in place to let them automatically go and present the assessor with a transaction that they've closed on and ask for the reimbursement.
But there's two motions and votes probably in February. One is on the dollars and one is on the ordinance.
No, the dollars should be done tonight.
Oh,
dollars is being presented to approve tonight. All the transactions on that schedule.
Okay.
Right. You can do the dollars tonight. We did. I did review and we went email back and forth with Aaron. We verified the numbers with the tax assessor and the tax collector. So that schedule that you have in front of you has been verified by finance, and we've reconciled the numbers. So if you approve tonight, we can move forward with the transaction.
I have a question. Aaron, is there any financial difference to the land trust whether we were to go through the process that we've just discussed on the retroactive piece, or whether the Board of Finance just appropriated $63,000 to the land trust?
To my knowledge, not really. I mean, I think it's just the difference. And I guess in this case, we're sort of asking for a refund. In the other case, it might be considered more of a grant. So I just don't know what the accounting would look like.
Actually, we rebate taxes all the time by the Board of Selectmen that are rebatable. So in this case, the state statute says the legislative body must approve a rebate. So it doesn't have to be appropriated because we have money in the general fund to pay it.
But dollars are fungible. I mean, there are any number of ways that we could get you $63,000. This just happens to be one of them. I'm okay with it. I just.
No, but again,
puts it in perspective.
The point is, it's a rebate of taxes. It's not an appropriation of dollars to be spent.
Okay, then I'll make the motion that the town council authorizes the rebate of real estate taxes paid to the town by the land trust to the sum of $63,890.
Christina is making a second. Okay.
Who was the second?
Christina Ross. Discussion? Steve?
Just a question is could the 63,000, Linda, be able to, could we sweep that into the land acquisition fund? Because we're really talking about doing this. This is what we're talking about, is trying to fund land acquisition, right? Would that make any sense to be able to slide it into that other fund?
No,
unless whatever they want with it.
Steve, the statute is a rebate that authorizes the land conservation trust to claim a rebate, just like the seniors can participate in but actually that's a reduction in taxes. But so it's not a funding of another fund, which is a town fund. It's a rebate back to the, in this case, the taxpayer, was the land trust.
I think the land acquisition fund is not the land trusts.
It's the town.
Well, I mean, it eventually will be. I mean, to me, it's always the same thing, but.
Well, keep in mind, there's only one land conservation trust in town, but actually there's a Connecticut. If another party could come in and ask for a rebate of taxes if they did a New Canaan transaction. And what's the organization in Connecticut, Aaron, that helped us with the Fowler property?
Trust for Public Land.
Yeah, so the Trust for Public Land, in theory, I think you could come in and do a transaction on New Canaan property and ask for the taxes back as well.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron, I'm not looking to take $63,000 away from your budget by any means. I was just, we look to fund that land acquisition, and it always seems like at the last minute we never put anything in there. So I was, it might have been a good way to at least get something in there. But
you can always do both, right?
Yeah, sure. The Conservation Commission encourages you to do both. We will put it in the budget at the Board of Selectmen level again and see where we come out in March, April.
I don't want to speak for everybody, but I don't think there's anybody that, at least on the council, that's against, looking at different land acquisitions. And Aaron, all the great work you do. Obviously, we're all behind what you do. So
thank you. It means a lot.
I have a question. I understand how town council approves the ordinance. I'm not clear on us approving the rebate. Is that what town council should do?
Yes, because the statute says the legislative body has to approve the rebate. So you could do, rather than doing an ordinance, you could just every time a transaction comes up every year, the land trust could apply to the town council to approve it without doing an ordinance. It's just that it is rather, you're making an entitlement to the land trust to just, present it to the town and say, I'd like my rebate.
So if we do approve the rebate, is there something going forward we need to cap, or is there some amount that we should say it can't go above a certain amount in case there's like a run on people giving their property to the land trust and all that stuff? We have
Good problem.
Well, that's a consideration as to how you want to word the ordinance. For example, we talked about maybe it ought to be that they come and present it to the Board of Selectmen, which meets every 2 weeks to approve it. But the process really hasn't been finalized as to exactly what you want the ordinance to say.
So that's okay to be discussed possibly.
Right.
I guess I'm just confused because if we're going to approve the rebates, we're essentially acknowledging the future.
Well, no, but if you don't adopt an ordinance early next year, they will come to you in future years every time there's a transaction. They may come once a year, twice a year.
Yeah, but what would be the argument for 1 year not to do it and the next year to completely reverse yourself?
Well, I think you're acknowledging the fact that the statute sort of entitles the land trust to ask for the money, but you could turn them down.
Right.
It's not automatic. Right now, they have to ask you for it. But
I have a question.
An ordinance could create a process for them to not have to come and ask but I think that's when you get to the ordinance. What do you want the ordinance to say? Do you want it to be automatic and they simply apply to the assessor and present a bill, or how do you want the ordinance to read?
Henny.
In every one of these transactions where land is being gifted to the land trust, does the land trust pay the owner of that land for the taxes they've already paid, or would it be the individual who paid the taxes about to gifting it come to the town and ask for a rebate?
I think so. You're talking about in future transactions?
No, in the past.
So yeah, in the past, that was that question about the sort of what the escrow was and the reimbursement for prepaid taxes. So those are instances where Joe donated some land and Joe had already paid 6 months of taxes, but was doing this transaction 4 months into that 6-month period. So we would effectively pay Joe for 4 of those months, even though he had already paid the town 6. And so it's sort of like we indirectly paid the town those taxes because we owned the property 2 months in.
So why wouldn't the owner come to the town?
Because the statute doesn't apply to them. It only applies to nonprofit land conservation organizations.
Have you had a case where the donor picks up, holds you harmless from the taxes?
Not yet.
Goes ahead and pays them voluntarily? That doesn't happen.
The only situation like that is we had a donor who had committed to giving a cash donation in addition to the land donation. And so then rather than us reimburse the taxes, he just deducted from that cash donation what the tax value was. So it still ended up being sort of a loss for the land trust.
The land trust is only paying taxes on the land during the period it owns it. And that's the money that we're refunding back to you. We're not refunding money back to donors. We're refunding money that the land trust is actually paying out of pocket. And that's an important distinction. So we're not talking about the donors' money and the donors' taxes. We're just talking about your taxes. Any further discussion? Okay, there being none, we have a motion. We have from Sven. We have a second, I think, from Christina. We've had our discussion. Are we ready to vote? All in favor of Sven's motion, raise your hand. I see John, Steve, Christina, Penny, Mark, Robin, Maria, Tom, Rich, Liz, Sven, Mike, and that's it. So it's unanimous. The reason I do that, by the way, is because if some people who are participating in this meeting who can't see the video are relying, maybe they're participating by phone, they're relying on me to actually say out loud who is voting on an issue. So that's why I name all your names. So it passes. Congratulations, Aaron. Thanks for the presentation. It's clear. And congratulations on your $63,000 windfall. Drinks are on you.
Thank you, John. And again, thanks to everybody. This is a big win for the Land Trust, and I'm looking forward to working with the Ordinance Committee and then just bringing this back in February.
Excellent.
Thanks for your work, Aaron. Good night.
Thanks, Aaron.
Good night. And that brings us to meeting schedule. It was pointed out to me by Tucker that we discussed our meeting schedule at the last meeting, and we seemed to approve it, but we never voted. So I need a motion to approve the regular meeting schedule for the calendar year 2021. I see a motion from Steve. I see a second from Maria. Steve, it's like it's like Family Feud. You got your hand on the buzzer first every time. I love that. All right. Any discussion on our meeting schedule? Does anybody even remember our meeting schedule? We probably don't have one in what, July, August? All right. I'll have to go look it up. Any discussion? Go ahead.
So last year we tried to streamline the process and eliminate some meetings and go ahead and watch Board of Finance deliberation instead. This is a non-streamlined version, is that right?
All right, so just to remind everybody, so it came up last month. This is the regular meeting schedule. I do believe, Tucker, tell me if I'm wrong, but we haven't added the
drafting the budget meeting schedule as we speak. I'm going to send it out probably tomorrow or the next day. We've been slotting in the different departments, and then you'll see the full budget meeting schedule. These are just your regular meetings.
Right, so we're going to adopt the regular meeting schedule. We're going to get the budget meeting schedule, and you're right, we indicated that we would like to have our own meetings with each of the departments and ask them our own questions like we did in the old days. Okay.
And since we're doing it that way, then those meetings are going to be special meetings because the schedule will not have been approved by December 31st, correct?
Yeah, I've got that all ready to go. I believe that's correct.
And that's typical. They were always noted on my calendar as special meetings in the days before Tucker. So no change.
Let's hope they're not Zoom meetings.
Let's hope.
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. I see John, Steve, Christina, Penny, Mark, Robin, Maria, Tom, Rich, Liz, Sven, and Mike. So the meeting schedule has been approved. You can publish it. Thank you, Tucker. All right, next, committee reports, updates from committees. You want to go in reverse order? Really mix things up? No, let's not do that. Bylaws and ordinances, Mark and Steve.
We have our marching orders for the land trust, so that's on. That'll be our project coming back to you in January.
Did you mean it when you said every time you pass an ordinance, you're going to eliminate two?
Oh, I love it. Got the red pen out.
Work on that. Education, Tom and Maria. I think Maria has something for us, right?
Well, I just passed out the budget workshop slides if you want to take a look. I guess enrollment looks fairly stable, if not decreasing, but that's always, it never seems to be, it's not final until September. And
do you have it on your screen? Do you want to share your screen or do you not want to share?
I think it's 4 slides on each page. It's kind of hard to read that way. But I think what's good about it is it just gives you an idea of what, it wasn't a budget meeting where there were dollars attached to anything. It was just a presentation of what is everyone's thinking of in their schools, what projects they're working on, what they've done. There was one new thing that stood out, something about a teacher residency program that was kind of new, so details will come with that. But other than that, it just really was, I think it's worth looking over the presentation and just getting an idea of what's going on. Tom, you
I
agree?
have something that brought a smile to my face. I hope it'll bring a smile to yours. We're so technologically sophisticated because of COVID that tomorrow being a snow day, school could go on. And even if nobody shows up, the state has said, that you don't have to consider that a snow day. You could actually consider that school. And so Dr. Lutzi put out a note this afternoon. He says, we could have done that, but we're calling it a real snow day. Tomorrow is officially a snow day. It is good for students, faculty, and staff to sleep in, eat a big breakfast, watch the snowfall, go sledding, drink hot chocolate, read a good book by the fire. No Zooming. So
That's true every day.
it's just fun.
Yeah, he actually released a video that was great too, with all the different schools. I don't know if you've seen it. It's up on YouTube. I can send the link around, but it's just a celebration of the snow day tomorrow. All the different kids cheering snow day, snow day. It's pretty good. Got to see it.
Please share it.
Send it.
I will.
It was kind of funny because it came a day after Lamont said something. He was quoted in the paper as saying, no more snow days, kids. You're going to keep working. And Zoom lets you work, but it's nice. They're going to get an actual snow day, which is always fun.
Well, it's a reward for us having been so diligent in staying ahead of the curve and actually teaching. I mean, there's so many communities that took quite a while to get their act together and they missed a lot of days. And we didn't.
I used to make a lot of money shoveling driveways and
Right? They should
you
be.
you got to give them the opportunity to do that.
Exactly.
All right, so there were 2 links. I saw the full presentation can be found here, and I looked at that. I thought it was interesting. Like you said, it didn't attach dollars to it, but they did talk. It wasn't the same old, same old. They did have a lengthy discussion about demographic changes. They did talk about school start times. There was a little table in there. They even talked about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I love to be reminded of Maslow's, and then they had another hierarchy alongside it, which I had never seen before. And then there's a second link that you send us, budget assumptions.
How are they connected?
Yeah, how are they connected?
Well, I think in that presentation, you see the 5 high-level bullets, and the budget assumptions link kind of breaks them down. And
Okay.
it's really just I guess, the overarching drivers for the budget. Not that it's not like a checklist. It's just the ideals of the direction that the district is taking. in those areas. And they do it every year. They put out those areas of focus. And I think it's interesting to pay attention to because, you know, then when we see the numbers, somehow it all falls under those assumptions somewhere. So it's kind of interesting to keep that in mind, you know, that it is all targeting specific goals, not a checklist, just a guide.
Okay, excellent. So nothing further on education. Do we know, can either of you tell me dates? So if the public's watching this, when do we think we're going to get our first indication, either from the Board of Finance guidance or the Board of Education on which direction we're heading?
The Board of Education will be presenting to the Board of Finance on January 26th.
Got it. Okay. Mark your calendar, January 26th, and we can watch that. That'll be maybe a Zoom meeting and we can all watch.
It will be on, yes, it will be on 79 as well.
Okay, excellent. All right, thank you, Tucker. Next, Finance and Government, Mark and Rich. Nothing.
Rich, do you have anything? I was just gonna.
Go ahead. I don't have a lot. I mean, we're getting off to a slow start in this budget season, you know?
Yeah, I would just say that I'll echo the comments that Rich and I made regarding the Board of Finance and their collaboration with the Board of Ed and you know, given the situation and being very fluid, it's hard to really meet and put the Board of Ed under greater stress right now. So I think you know, they're working and collaborating and trying to get to an end point. But for now, given the situation, and I'm sorry. Go ahead, Joe.
We talked about a joint meeting. Kevin said, "Oh, I'll put that together." Do you either of you think it's important? Because it seems like, is it still important to do it?
I think it'd be hard to do given what I'm hearing from the Board of Finance and what Todd's saying. So,
okay.
But Rich, please.
I would echo that. I think this year it's very difficult to do, especially where we are. I mean, it's mid-December. People are getting a ways into actually doing the bottoms up budget.
Okay. Okay. Just
it's very hard to know. It's very hard to know where we're coming out this year. COVID has us so coming and going with ups and downs, and so.
Okay. So no further presentations from finance. We're good?
No, we left our charts at home tonight.
Yeah. No, I'm one of the 12 positive cases Kevin mentioned, so I'm not. I want this meeting to end too.
Okay. Health and Human Services, Liz, Penny.
I have just a little bit from the last meeting earlier this month. Just a quick update on the food pantry. They normally serve around 60 families and individuals. Right now, they've got 80 that they are taking care of. Thanksgiving, they're able to give out sides and a $25 gift card to Acme. Right now, in terms of COVID outreach, their focus is on seniors 80 and over. A lot of the volunteers that enlisted early on to shop for our seniors are still working with their original seniors, so that's good. Unfortunately, some of our seniors are still shopping for themselves, which, you know, all you can do is encourage them not to at this point. They are, for Christmas, they're going to be giving out $50 per child gift cards at the December food pantry. And they also gave out little gift bags for 120 of our senior households with information about all the different departments in town, where they could get help in different topics. And a number of us helped to distribute those. Penny, you have anything else?
Oh, it reflects the notes I took also.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Penny. Next, infrastructure and utilities, Christina and Penny.
The budget season hasn't started. We don't have anything really to add because we haven't had a meeting for this season. But I can tell you that the West Road Bridge will be starting in January, and maybe Penny has some updates, or Tiger's on, he can elaborate more on what's going on.
Ready to do, let me follow up on what Kevin reported to you in the early part of the meeting, because I sit on the infrastructure appointed committee. At which point there's, lots of reports coming in from various infrastructure projects. Tiger gave quite a thorough update on the various roads and their condition. Now the plants have closed for the season, so there'll be no more road repairs until next spring. But Fieldcrest and Village are almost completed. River Street has to be done next spring. I think the Waveney lot will be done next spring as well. The West Road will start in January with no upcharge for winter work. They want to be engaged in that now. The drainage on 123 is on hold for a while. And some of the other road work is going to be done around Locust. There are conflicting demands for police coverage on that. So they're going to, have those discussions about whether or not 123 goes ahead of the Locust work. Discussions, they've got an engineering study that's about to start on the Salt Dome. The way station house is being manufactured. Budget work is underway. There's a grant out for the bike route to Darien. More discussions and analysis of putting solar and roof work on the high school. There are 28 different sections in the high school, which I thought was really interesting. It's not one great big roof, but it's all divided up there. If you haven't had a chance to be at Waveney House, of course, there's no activity there now, but the Garden Club and the Conservation Group have done some new plantings around the building, which has enhanced the attractiveness of that area. And in anticipation of the west porch entrance being redesigned and built. The contractor will start pretty soon doing all of the work that we approved on the entrances and exits to the building. And it's anticipated that that work will be completed in 6 months. Stuart Salvini, and it was supported by comments from me as well, that perhaps this group, the Selectmen's Task Force, should go back to the buildings report and look at the status of some of the recommendations, and what has gotten some attention and what needs to get attention, particularly with those buildings that perhaps we aren't utilizing. Do they need to be utilized, or further energy put into their sale? And I think that's about it.
All right, it's a good report. And let me also mention that First Selectman testified at the PURA hearing on Eversource and what they can be doing during our next storm, how they can handle our next storm better. I think that's an important infrastructure initiative, getting Eversource to be more accountable. Next up, land use and recreation, Robin and Maria.
So at the Parks and Rec meeting, some of the highlights were Tom O'Day spoke about the ice rink that New Canaan Ice Rink Inc. purchased. It's 120 by 60 feet. Parks and Rec now has to look for a spot for it. They're looking in one of the parks. They haven't said which park yet. They're still determining that. There were some people at the meeting, of course, who were against it being put in Kiwanis, but nothing's been established as to where it would go. So Parks and Rec has not even picked Kiwanis or anything. The Fields pesticide report was brought up. Parks and Rec made a motion to support the memo that went to the Board of Selectmen, basically supporting the current integrated pest management program. Steve Banco spoke about he's just getting the guidance now for the budget, so they're going to speak about that next month. The apple trees were planted in the orchard field, which is the softball field, and that was done by New Canaan Softball. The Frisbee golf course, there are 6 new holes, but it didn't seem like, wasn't sure who put them in. So there's 6 new holes at the Frisbee golf course at Waveney. And then also Waveney Conservancy has put up the 4 trail pet waste containers, and they'll be up for 6 months, and they're collecting data on that, and they'll send that back to Parks and Rec. And that's, I don't know, Maria, do you want to add anything?
No, just I heard that they have like a group of 3 people looking at the possible ice skating rink locations. And like you said, there were very vocal opponents to it going at Kiwanis. So they just have to find the right place for it. They have they have all the equipment. They just need to figure out where to put it.
Yeah, and Parks and Rec made the point of saying that a location has not been picked yet. So
right. Yeah.
People just assumed it was Kiwanis.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Finally, public safety, and Liz and Mike.
Can you see me? Hi. The fire department is pretty quiet. However, this weekend, there's actually a really great event, excuse me, that will take place on Saturday and Sunday. The FD got together with a not-for-profit called Curativity, which is for St. Jude's Children's Hospital. And basically, by making a donation to the Curativity Foundation, Santa will come by in a fire truck to your home, and the fire department will have a nice donation made as well to it. So it's a nice event for Jude's not-for-profit called Curativity, and it's great for the town and great for the fire department. So we're really excited that that got together fairly quick over the last 2 weeks. On the police department front, it's fairly quiet. Again, vehicle larcenies are up, car thefts are up. So the chief reminds everyone, lock your cars, keep valuables out. The incident that happened with the several firearms that were stolen, I think it was yesterday or the day before, was a little unique because it was actual like a forced entry. They smashed the windows to get in, which is fairly uncommon for the larcenies that happen. Usually it's just an open car door. The other thing that struck me from the police commission meeting this evening was the chief has submitted his draft budget to finance. He's coming in at under 1% on his operating side, which is obviously fantastic. But on the capital side, he has about a $216,000 increase that has to get covered. It's a pretty dramatic increase to his capital, and that's all because of having to comply with this new police accountability bill that was passed into law in the sometime in the mid-fall or late summer, I believe. There's a lot of so basically an unfunded mandate to the police department for training for all 50 of the members to be outfitted with new cameras. The vehicles now have to have new camera systems. There has to be a whole IT infrastructure backup to integrate the cameras and have a storage capacity. There's quite a bit of work involved and a lot of dollars that have to be spent that the town has to cover. It's an unfunded mandate. The chief's trying to find grant money, but it's not looking too promising. So just something for everyone to be aware of as we go into the budget process, that the chief's capital budget is going to be fairly large because of the unfunded mandate. So that's the report.
Can I add?
Yes.
Okay. So I was stopped by the firehouse to, or Zoomed their meeting. So the rescue is going to be delayed. There's some issues with some body work, and the design engineer at Gowans and Knight unfortunately passed away from COVID. So they're double teaming in order to try and bring that back on schedule. Captain Vitti retired, so there's a promotion up for captain and hiring in for entry level. Talked to the ambulance corps. They want you to all know that they really want a new ambulance this year. And there's a new EMT training course that starts in January and is not full. So if anybody out there wants to become an EMT, now's the time. We really need you. And all EMTs have been really safe. You know, it's been pretty safe for those folks. So that's it.
Thank you, Sven. Okay, I think we've gotten through our committee reports.
Actually, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Sorry. And this is a question for Kevin. What kind of effort is made either as individual mayor, first selectman, or through the COVID on your mind, COGS, to get to our legislators about unfunded mandates? I know there was an effort afoot to do an evaluation of the municipalities and the mandates that we, have placed upon us, and as to whether or not some of them are still valid exercises, or can they be justified to be removed, from the books.
To be honest, Penny, I can't think of any. Maybe CCM is working on something, but there's a legislative call with CCM the first week of January, I think it is. Legislative session call, but I think, when do bills have to be introduced by? By the third week of the session or something?
I know Will Haskell just sent out an email looking for suggestions for bills, and maybe this is a good time to suggest a bill on unfunded, unnecessary, one size fits all mandates that there's no basis in our data to substantiate implementing them. So maybe we should think of some language to encourage that.
Be happy to talk about it, Penny. I just hasn't been on the radar screen really lately.
Yeah.
Send the chiefs, send that capital slide of the chiefs, send that to Will and Alex and Tom. They'll get the message. Okay.
Hey, John, one positive story to thank Steve Bank on his staff. First of all, obviously, we're not going to be doing Caroline at God's Acre, which is a bummer. But one of the positives recently, Saturday, Breakfast with Santa was supposed to be held at Waveney, and Steve and his staff did an unbelievable job getting a drive-through Breakfast with Santa executed, socially distanced. The kids were safely handed a goodie bag, and the amount of toys that were collected in one drive-through event absolutely blew us away. They filled up an entire full-size pickup truck with a cap on the back to the brim, and they stuffed toys inside the truck. It was unbelievable, the amount of toys that came in through this drive-through effort. There were so many toys that we couldn't unload them into our truck in the showroom, and we drove it directly down to Toys for Tots in Stamford, and a 2-star general and 2 Marines met us there and unloaded the truck, and the Advocate picked it up, did a photo, so you may see that in the paper. But it was really amazing what was collected in that one event. So thank you to Steve and his staff. Just a great event. Well done.
Can I follow up on that? On Thursday, the chamber was supposed to have done photos with Santa last weekend, but the weather was so bad, so they partnered up with Steve and all of his holiday setup and had Santa come, and again, a very safe photo op with Santa. but they collected 2 full cars full of food for the food pantry during
That's great.
that process too. So
New Canaan gives, New Canaan comes out. Really
they
do.
That's a nice way to end. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Well, I want to say to Tiger, hey, we see that you're listening in. You guys be safe tonight.
yeah. And they cleared, I don't know if you all saw, but all the barricades came off the street today about 1 o'clock. All the restaurants pulled all of their stuff last night, so
It went flawlessly?
flawlessly.
Excellent.
Who made the motion to adjourn?
Nobody did.
Stop. Made the motion.
All right, Christina, seconded by Mark. Mark. We got to get you out of here. All right, all in favor? All right, looks unanimous. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Happy
Stay
holidays.
healthy.
Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas.
A healthy new year.